Am I the asshole for pointing out that my mother is treating me differently from my siblings? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the person who's supposed to love and care for you is treating you as if you're invisible compared to your siblings. That's exactly how I've been feeling lately. I am 17 years old, and I've been noticing that my mother is treating me differently than my older brothers, who are 20 and 22. I recently graduated from secondary school, and a few months ago, I came up with a plan. I want to study abroad, and I wanted to spend my last few weeks here with my siblings, just like we used to before they also went abroad. Lately, I've noticed that my mother has been much more lenient with my brothers about certain things, especially about cleanliness. One of my brothers, the 20-year-old, leaves his socks around and doesn't throw trash away immediately, things I know my mother doesn't like. Honestly, I don't like it either, and yet she hasn't said anything to him about it. I find this unfair because if I acted the same way, I would have definitely been yelled at and probably heard another one of her 10-minute rants. Saturdays are usually the day we all clean the house. I was sick that day, so I didn't feel like helping out, though I did do something at least. My mother asked me and my siblings to help, but I ended up doing the biggest chore, in my opinion, while one of my brothers, the 22-year-old, didn't do anything at all. The rest of the chores my mother did herself. Today, she asked me to help her clean the bathrooms, which I have no problem with, but I asked her why she doesn't ask my siblings to help out too. I've noticed that she hasn't been asking my oldest brother to do any chores this past week. She told me she doesn't ask them because they're basically on vacation. I pointed out that I'm also on vacation since I finished school. She said that it's different, but honestly, I don't see how. I might still be at home, but that doesn't make me any less on vacation. I don't mind helping out since I always do, but I really don't like that she only asks me and not my siblings. I know this might seem like a small, insignificant thing, but I still wonder, am I wrong in this situation? Is it fair that I'm the only one she asks for help with chores? Story 2. Could I be the villain for skipping my sister's baby shower? Imagine being caught in a web of family tension, feeling invisible to the very people you want to connect with most. That's how this story begins. The person narrating is a woman in her mid-30s, caught between two sisters. One sister, 31 years old, is pregnant, and she hears from her only every few months. The other sister, 33, hasn't spoken to her in over 3 years. They're both very close with each other, and she knows they hold a pretty low opinion of her. She's tried to make amends, reaching out with messages, but gets no response. She's a recovering addict and has bipolar disorder, which went undiagnosed for a long time, and she feels like she's never quite enough. Then she receives an invitation on Facebook for her pregnant sister's baby shower, along with a registry full of very expensive gifts. The guest list is filled with people who aren't exactly her biggest fans either. She had considered going, hoping to mend some bridges, but when her dad asked her yesterday if she was planning to go, she suddenly realized she didn't want to. She's questioning herself, asking how long she should keep trying to fix things. She knows that if she goes, all the interactions will replay in her mind for months, making her feel even worse about herself. She also suspects that her sister probably invited her only because her dad expects her to be there. To make matters worse, her sister didn't invite her to her gender reveal party, which deeply upset her dad. So she's wondering aloud, am I the asshole for not going to my sister's baby shower? She's decided to send a nice present and write a heartfelt card, and then leave it at that. The responses she received have been very humbling and thought-provoking, and she's now contemplating doing just that. Story 3. Could I be the bad person if I don't let my best friend and his girlfriend have sex in my house? Imagine being in your own home, trying to sleep, and hearing the sounds of your best friend and his girlfriend being intimate just a few feet away from you. That's exactly what happened to me, and I'm struggling with whether or not I'm in the wrong for feeling uncomfortable about it. My name is Laura, I'm 19, and I have a close friend named Larry, who is in his 20s, along with his girlfriend Anne, also in her 20s. Larry and Anne have been together for about 3 months now, and they're pretty much passionate about being intimate everywhere they can. Honestly, I don't really care about that. It's not my business to judge or be involved. But what really bothers me is when they do it right next to me, especially when I'm trying to sleep. Every time we stay over at Anne's house, they get loud, and I've told Larry numerous times that I don't feel comfortable with them doing it right next to me. His excuse is that I don't have a say because I'm sleeping, and I should just stay quiet until they're done. This has led to arguments, and I've stopped going to Anne's for sleepovers because it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Now, here's the main issue. In 2 days, we're planning to go out to a club, and after that, they want to crash at my place for a few hours. I don't mind them staying over, but I absolutely do not want them to be intimate in my house. Larry has been making snide remarks all week about how I should leave my own room and sleep on the couch, just so they can do whatever they want. The thought of them being intimate anywhere in my house, especially from someone I consider a friend, feels disgusting to me. I know they probably don't care about my feelings and even try to guilt-trip me, especially Anne, who tends to put Larry in the mood. It's not like he refuses, but you get what I mean. I feel extremely disrespected because I've made it clear I don't want this to happen in my house, and yet they continue to push boundaries. So I'm wondering, would I be the asshole if I kick them both out in the middle of the night if they try to start something? Am I overreacting for feeling uncomfortable hearing them right next to me doing it? Is Larry right in saying that I don't have a say because I'm sleeping? I really need some outside perspective and advice on how to handle this situation. Would I be the asshole if I stand my ground and tell them they cannot do this in my house? Story 4. Have you ever been caught in a situation where doing the right thing makes you the villain? Imagine lending your own medical equipment to a family member in need, only to be told you're the selfish one for asking for it back. 7 months ago, my father-in-law was hospitalized due to a health problem, and when he returned home, he was not very mobile. He was discharged without any medical equipment, and for some reason, his physical therapist only came once and never returned. I decided to let him borrow some of my medical equipment temporarily, since I had used it for my own parent before. The idea was that it was just for a limited time, until he and his adult children could figure things out. He started seeing several specialists, but refused to ask for the equipment he needed or pursue other treatments. His adult children didn't bother to research places where they could borrow, rent, or buy the necessary equipment for free. Everyone who claimed to care about him seemed content with just words and food, as if that was enough. I searched online and found a place where my father-in-law or his children could borrow the equipment for free, but it was about a 25-mile drive away. I mentioned it to my boyfriend, but he didn't want to make the drive or try to find other solutions on his own. He didn't even bring up splitting the cost with his siblings because he refuses to talk to them after a fight related to his care. We argued about it constantly, but I was branded the bad person for wanting the equipment back. Their reason was that I didn't need it, but he did, and that I was being selfish. They believe that taking care of a parent with health issues is just about asking if they took their medication or driving them to appointments. But I think his children should educate themselves about his illnesses and put more effort into making his life easier if they truly care. There are other issues in our relationship, and I think that's part of why my partner acts like his decision to keep the equipment matters more than anything else. Story 5. Have I lost my mind for expecting my mother-in-law to stay at our house while I have a baby? Imagine the chaos building up as your due date approaches, and you're trying to plan the simplest things. My husband, who is 35 years old, and I, a 33-year-old woman, are about to welcome our second child this summer. We already have the schedule for the cesarean section, so it's coming soon, really soon. With our first child, my mother-in-law stayed at our house to look after our 3 dogs and a cat while we were in the hospital having the first baby. We were there for 3 nights, and it went smoothly. This time it's the same house, same pets. Well, minus 2 dogs, Rip the good boy and girl, and a toddler who is 2.5 years old. We're planning to leave a day earlier this time because we have a better idea of what we're doing. My mother-in-law was initially totally on board to stay at our house with our toddler, and take care of things while we were away. She even took time off work to be here, so we didn't make any other plans. But now, things have changed. When I talk to her, she's trying to convince us that she needs to stay at her house with our toddler, and that we can just find someone to take the dog somewhere and pick both of them up the day we come home. I told my husband absolutely not, no way. If that's her plan, then we will find another family member who can either stay at their house or stay at ours for both the dogs and the toddler. We're not asking her to stay all day. Our toddler goes to daycare during the day. We only need someone to be here in the evenings to keep the dog company and take care of it twice a day, and so our toddler can stay in his normal routine at his house. It's literally only 2 nights unless something goes wrong. And here's some extra context that might matter. Our dog is dog reactive. It loves people, has no bite history, and no other dogs around. It only has health issues when severely stressed, which has not happened in a while. It's a couch potato. My mother-in-law was happy to agree to all of this back in November when I first asked, and she confirmed again in April that she was still happy to help and stay at our house. But when I told her the cesarean was scheduled in 3 weeks, she suddenly changed her mind while we were on the phone. We mentioned that my father-in-law could watch both the toddler and the dogs, but she didn't want that and only wants her biological child, the grandmother's favorite. And here's the biggest concern: her house isn't child-proofed. No gates for the stairs, and there's a dog that has bitten the toddler before. Plus, 3 cats that have also bitten and scratched the toddler. I honestly don't understand why she's so insistent on staying at her house when it's clearly not safe for our child or the pets, and she's not even willing to help out as originally promised. Am I the one in the wrong for expecting her to stay at our house for just 2 nights to help us out during such a stressful time? Story 6. Am I the asshole for cooking different foods? Imagine living in a place where your own health and comfort are constantly at odds with the opinions and habits of someone you share a home with. That's the situation I find myself in every day. I live with a roommate, and while I'm not a picky eater, he is. He jokes that his food preferences are on par with a second grader's, whereas I'll eat just about anything. If I'm not allergic, I'll try it. I'm a bit of a foodie and love exploring new flavors. But there's a catch. I have alpha-gal syndrome, or AGS, which means I react badly to beef and pork. Even a beef gravy can make my mouth, tongue, and throat itch intensely. Because of that, I stick to poultry, fish, and vegetarian options. He hates the smell of cooked fish, curry, or Mexican foods. More specifically, he can't stand the smell of cumin. Whenever he smells cumin, he rants about the place smelling like a Mexican's backside, which I find pretty offensive, but I love the flavor of cumin, so I try to compromise. I usually diffuse the smell by joking, "When have you ever sniffed a Mexican's backside?" I thought only dogs did that. I keep the stove fan on while I cook, use scented aerosol sprays afterward, because honestly, stir-fry, meatballs, burger patties, baked chicken, those get boring after a while, so I like to mix it up with things like turkey chili. I make sure the fan is always running while I cook. I'd open a window if I could, but it's a basement apartment with no windows in the kitchen. Clean up thoroughly afterward, and spray the kitchen with scented aerosol. Yet he always comes back furious, ranting, raving, yelling, slamming things, because I've cooked foods he explicitly told me not to make. He also refuses to believe that AGS exists, claiming I'm lying about my allergy. Things got worse recently. The itching in my throat, tongue, and mouth is a new and alarming symptom. It happened when I accidentally bit into a strip of bacon in a chicken wrap. My stomach cramped up, and I ended up spending 2 hours on the toilet. I had to take Benadryl to stop the itching in my mouth and throat. Despite all of this, he still cooks beef and pork without using the fan, even though I've asked him multiple times. A few times recently, my asthma has flared up while he's cooking, but he keeps insisting I'm faking my allergy and that I should stick to normal food. Am I the asshole for cooking something different? Story 7. Have you ever been caught in a situation where you're not sure if you're the villain or the hero? Last night, I found myself asking that exact question. It all started when my friend, who's also 18, asked me if I could walk her to a guy's house because she didn't want to go alone at night. The guy lives about 25 minutes away, and she was feeling nervous about going alone. I agreed, but honestly, I didn't feel safe just sitting outside his house at 2 a.m., especially since they were inside doing whatever they were doing. So I told her I'd call my boyfriend, who's 20, to drive us there. We drop her off and wait in his car for her to come back. As we were heading there, I noticed my boyfriend was making some pretty mean comments about her. He was saying she was being stupid for wanting to see a guy who couldn't even give her a ride there and back. And honestly, I was thinking the same thing. I believed she needed to hear that. Then he crossed a line by saying that the guy was just going to sleep with her and send her home, and that she had no self-respect. My friend was just laughing it off the whole time and kept saying she didn't expect anything from him because they weren't dating. My boyfriend drove her to the house, waited, and then we picked her up afterward. As we were leaving, he kept looking at her, shaking his head, and saying he was disappointed, but she was laughing the whole time. Later, she texted me saying I was weird for not standing up for her and that I shouldn't have let him speak to her like that. She said what he was saying really hurt her feelings. I asked her why she didn't say anything in the moment, and she said she thought I was going to say something to him. I get where she's coming from, but she was laughing through the whole thing, so I didn't realize she was actually upset. Plus, I really think she needed to hear some of that. I'm left wondering if I was the asshole for not defending her, or if I did the right thing by being honest. Story 8. Am I the asshole for asking my professor for a one-day extension after Canvas blocked me again while I was abroad? So basically, I'm an international student studying in the United States, but I've been back home in my family house for the summer. I wasn't on vacation or traveling around, just staying at home. Despite being back in my country, I decided to register for some online summer classes at my university. However, I ran into a problem. The university's learning platform, Canvas, was blocked in my country by the university's IT department. So, I relied on a VPN to access it and submit homework until I had an exam coming up that used lockdown software, which didn't work properly with VPNs. I had to find an official solution. Earlier in the week of the exam, I worked with my school's IT department to get my IP address whitelisted so I could access Canvas for my exam scheduled on Sunday. Everything seemed to be fine. I tested Canvas on Saturday, submitted some homework, and it worked perfectly. But then on Sunday morning, when I sat down to take the exam, I discovered I was blocked again. It turned out my IP address had changed overnight, which caused me to get blocked again. To explain, most internet service providers, including mine, assign what's called a dynamic IP address to home networks. This means the address my connection uses to access the internet automatically changes every few days. I can't control when or how often it changes, and I had no idea it had changed overnight, nor did I know my school's IT department hadn't anticipated this issue. Since Canvas blocks all IPs from my country by default, once my IP changed, I was locked out again. I contacted it immediately, but they told me they couldn't help until Monday, after the exam deadline. So I emailed my professor explaining the situation and asked for a one-day extension under the circumstances. Her response was cold. She said she doesn't allow extensions unless there are serious extenuating circumstances, and that this didn't count because I chose to travel. She also pointed out that it is open on weekends, and that I had until the end of business hours to resolve the issue with them, despite me clearly explaining that they had already told me the problem couldn't be fixed until Monday. I tried to explain that I'm not on some vacation sipping pina coladas, forgetting about the exam until the last minute. I'm home with my family, settled, and I had already taken steps earlier in the week to prevent this from happening. But she brushed it off and said I'd get a 0 if I didn't resolve it before the deadline. I got in touch with it again, and they agreed that the professor was being unreasonable and overly harsh. They decided to contact her directly to explain that these issues are out of my control and that I made reasonable efforts to avoid technical problems. I understand deadlines are important, but I truly did everything I could. I tested the system, coordinated with it in advance, and just got unlucky with a technical issue I couldn't predict or prevent. So, am I the asshole for asking for a one-day extension under these circumstances? Story 9. Is it wrong for standing up to my mom about how she treats my girlfriend? Imagine being in a situation where your mother, someone you love dearly, crosses a line that you simply cannot accept. You try to keep the peace, but her disrespect and passive-aggressive behavior push you to your limit. You've always had a complicated relationship with her. She can be loving but also controlling, always clashing over boundaries. You're 28 years old, with a serious girlfriend of 2 years, planning a future together. Your mother lives in another state, but was visiting recently, and what happened during that visit made everything worse. It all started when I accidentally vented to my parents about a normal fight I had with my girlfriend. It wasn't anything extreme, just typical communication issues, some overthinking and insecurity. I realize now I shouldn't have shared that, but I did. My dad listened and has been supportive and respectful since. My mom, however, took it as proof that my girlfriend was bad for me. During her visit, she refused to even use my girlfriend's name, making passive-aggressive comments instead. She also complained about a small mirror my girlfriend took, telling me to tell your girlfriend to put it back, which really angered me. I found it petty and disrespectful. Things escalated during breakfast when she refused to drop the topic. I didn't yell, but I told her firmly to stop. I said I'd leave if she kept it up, and eventually, I told her I'd pay for her to stay at a hotel if she wanted to continue disrespecting my relationship. She was so offended, she moved out and sent me an emotional message saying she's done with me, mocking the idea of me setting terms for dinner. Her message accused me of always disrespecting her, putting my girlfriend over her, and being ungrateful for her sacrifices. She said she's tired of it all, and that I've treated her badly my whole life. For context, my mom also routinely overshares her marital problems with me, details about fights with my dad I never wanted to hear. I've listened without judging, and I mentioned this in my message. I told her I won't tolerate her insulting my girlfriend or refusing to acknowledge her by name. I admitted I shouldn't have involved them in our personal issues. I made it clear I won't let anyone tell me who I can or cannot be with. I love my girlfriend, but this is non-negotiable. I also expressed that I want to keep our couple's conflicts private so we can have a healthy relationship. I told her I'm here if she wants to talk or have dinner, but only if she respects that boundary. Her response was simply, "It's over," and she said she's done with me. I love my mom, but I also love my girlfriend. I'm not choosing one over the other, I just want respect. I don't expect her to love my girlfriend, but I do expect her to be polite and not drag me into insults or disrespect. So, am I the asshole for standing my ground and telling my mom she can't insult my girlfriend or try to control who I see? Story 10. Could I be the one in the wrong for backing out of a sibling camping trip after my sister suddenly decided last minute to bring our niece? It all started with a trip I had been looking forward to for months. I am a 35-year-old woman, and I had planned to go on a camping adventure with my older brother, his 2 daughters aged 12 and 14, and my younger sister who is 30. We had all paid our share to my younger sister, who booked the campsite, each of us contributing $101. We agreed that my sister would not bring her dog, nor would she invite our younger brother and his 3 young kids, ages 2 to 6, because she wanted to relax, have some drinks, and not spend her vacation babysitting. My brother and I both work stressful jobs and desperately needed this break. Everything was set. Then today, out of the blue, my sister called me and said that her youngest daughter, our 6-year-old niece, would be joining us and that we would be responsible for babysitting her during the trip. I was blindsided. I felt like she hadn't consulted anyone before making that decision. I know she didn't talk to my older brother about it either, because I know he wouldn't be okay with taking care of her. I adore my niece, but babysitting her is really draining. She has severe ADHD and tends to have screaming fits whenever she's told no. That's not just typical kid behavior. Her ADHD causes her to be hyper and energetic, and the temper tantrums are a separate issue. Honestly, if I go on this trip, I know it won't be the relaxing getaway I was craving. It's been months in the making, and I was really counting on having some peace. So now I'm seriously considering dropping out. I feel like I was caught off guard and that my boundaries are being pushed. Would I be the one in the wrong if I tell my sister I won't be joining them for this trip? I'm just feeling overwhelmed and disappointed, and I think I might spend that time at a resort and spa instead. Later, I found out that my sister decided that our niece wouldn't be allowed to bring her tablet because she's declared this a no electronics trip. That's a disaster waiting to happen. The ride to the campsite is 3 hours long, and my niece usually relies on her tablet to get through long car rides. Without it, she's likely to become very upset. The fact that my sister had this conversation while my older brother was out of earshot makes me even more frustrated. I plan to tell him what's going on and let him decide. For now, I've made up my mind. I won't be going on this trip, and I think I'll spend my days at a nice resort and spa instead to unwind from all the stress. Story 11. Could I be the asshole for asking my boyfriend to ask his friends to leave when I get home? This is such a stupid thing to even talk about, but whatever. Basically, my boyfriend, whom I'll call Dan, is 27 years old and I am 25. We both work full-time. Dan has a group of 4 friends, all guys in their late 20s, who work from home. They like to meet up and hang out when they're working. It's fine, I'm happy for them. They rotate between their houses, meeting up for lunch, and sometimes they extend it into a post-work hangout. The thing is, all of his friends live alone. Dan and I live together. One of my biggest pet peeves is having random people in my house when I get home from work. I hate it so much. I just want to take my shoes off, relax, unwind, and I can't do that if there are 4 guys I don't really know in my living room and kitchen. I've talked to Dan about it, suggesting that maybe we could remove our house from the rotation or at least ask his friends to leave around the time I get home. I figured that was reasonable. But Dan said that was controlling, which maybe it is. He also said it wouldn't be fair for his friends to host every week and for him to just skate by. I get that. I really do. But I feel like I'm a variable that isn't being taken into account here. Honestly, I'm conflicted about whether I'm in the wrong or not, so I thought I'd ask. Am I the asshole for not wanting my boyfriend's friends over when I get home? To add more context from some questions and comments I've seen, the guys usually come over once a week, sometimes twice. They come around lunchtime, around noon, and stay until about 7 p.m. or so. I usually get home around 5:30. I do not want or expect my boyfriend to stop hanging out with his friends, nor am I asking him to break up with me over this. We had a regular, normal conversation about it, and I didn't yell or lecture him. The guys aren't creepy or weird or anything. I'm just tired after work, and I like being able to unwind, and part of that for me is knowing I don't have guests around. I can't really avoid them much either. Our apartment has an open floor plan, and the only bathroom is in our bedroom, so there's always some level of interaction. I just want some peace after a long day, but I don't know if I'm being unreasonable. Story 12. Could I be the asshole for ignoring my manager's texts, and would I be the jerk if I blocked his number? I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. So here's the situation. I'm a 26-year-old woman, and my brother Mike is 24. We work in different areas of the same company, each with our own manager. My manager is actually pretty decent, respectful of my time, boundaries, all that. But Mike's manager, Gary, who's around 45 to 50 years old, is a different story. He's a fun, slightly ditzy guy, but he has this habit of texting me whenever he needs Mike to cover shifts. This started years ago, back when Mike turned off notifications for our work app and rarely answered calls. Since I'm on my phone a lot and Mike is usually offline, Gary started messaging me instead. Things got more complicated when Mike had to leave during COVID for family reasons, came back later, and had to fight to get his wages raised because he was still earning less than his coworkers. Plus, he's the only one in his department who knows how to do everything, so he ends up stuck with the worst shifts. At one point, Mike told management he'd quit unless they gave him a raise and a more consistent schedule. He asked not to be messaged about extra shifts, saying they could just talk to him in person because of his anxiety. They agreed. He did get a raise, only 50 cents less than he asked for, but he stayed because they initially respected his new schedule. That was only 2 weeks. Then Gary started asking me again. And here's the thing. Since Mike was rehired, Gary always messages me first, and only me, assuming I'll pass the message along in person since Mike doesn't check his phone often. I get that he might think I'm the go-between because of the anxiety talk, but it's so frustrating. I've told coworkers, and even Gary himself, that I hate being the middleman. I'm not Mike's personal assistant. Yesterday, while I was working, Gary messaged me, "Can Mike work this weekend?" I replied that I'd pass the message along, assuming he'd also message Mike directly. Then today he sent, "So, can he work?" I've ignored that one so far because I'm not even scheduled until next week. But what really bugged me was 2 months ago, when I was on vacation at the airport, Gary messaged me about Mike. I looked back through our texts, and every single message from Gary since Mike's rehire has been about Mike. Honestly, Mike should probably just quit, but am I the jerk for ignoring Gary? And would I be the jerk if I blocked his number? I've already told him directly that I'm not his messenger, but I don't think quoting Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, "I'm not a bloody owl," would make much difference. Story 13. Is it wrong for me to feel overwhelmed and frustrated living in this tiny apartment with my family? My mom and I recently got into a huge argument, and I told her I just can't live like this anymore. I said she has no consideration for me and my sister, and that she chooses to live in this cramped situation. I've never really shared a story like this before, but lately, I've been reaching my breaking point. My parents divorced in 2020 after my sister was born. We used to live in Florida as a family, in a simple 3-bedroom house with a patio and a garage. We had just moved from Brooklyn, New York. It was really hard for me to fit in at first, but eventually I made some friends and found my support. Then, in my second semester of 8th grade, they separated, and my sister and I moved back to New York with my mom. I was so upset about it. Everything I had felt was just so meaningless because their relationship had fallen apart. So we moved right back to where we started, a 1-bedroom apartment where my parents lived together. Back then, they used to share the room, and my space was basically the living room because it had curtains and stuff. I was young then, so I didn't really care about privacy. But now, it's a different story. Around 2021 or 2022, my grandma moved in with us. She was supposed to stay for only 6 months, but here she is, still sharing a room with me. I know it might sound harsh, but she's never really wanted much of a relationship with me or my sister. She acts more like a roommate. Also, she's not that old. She's probably in her mid-50s, so I don't think she should be the one needing care. She works at a hospital and spends every paycheck on hoarding stuff, cluttering up the house. There's a litter box for her cat that's never really cleaned, so I end up cleaning it so I don't smell cat urine. We share a room with my sister, while my mom has a makeshift room in the living room like I used to. And now, my mom's boyfriend has moved in too. I don't have anything against him, but there's just no space. Plus, we have my dog. So, in this tiny 1-bedroom apartment in New York City, there are 4 adults, 1 child, and 2 animals. I can't even shower peacefully because someone's always walking in. I can't cook a meal without someone hovering in the small kitchen. I have no space for my clothes. I love my mom, I'm grateful she provides for us and gives us what we need. But honestly, it feels like a distraction. She always says, "So what if it's crowded? You just have to deal with it." Or she tells me, "Move out if it's really a problem." But why doesn't she care? If she wants to stay in the projects, that's fine, but why not apply for a place with more bedrooms? Why choose to make her kids uncomfortable? And she says she's just trying to be a good person. But honestly, my house feels like a hotel. On top of all this, family members come over for sleepovers, and there's no space at all. My mom makes around $100,000 a year plus child support, so I know this isn't about money. NYC is expensive, but if she truly wanted the best for us, she'd save up or go to the management office and request a bigger apartment. But she doesn't do anything. I'm planning to wait until I graduate early in January 2026 to move in with my dad down south and start my life over. I love my city, but I've been so depressed living here. I just want to get out. Please let me know if I'm the asshole for feeling this way. Story 14. Could I be the one in the wrong for not volunteering to sleep on the floor even though my friends were hinting that I should? Last night, my friends and I, all around 16 or 17 years old, had a sleepover at one of their houses. There were 5 of us in total. My friend has a queen-sized bed, I think, so it was really cramped in there with not much arm or leg space. At one point, everyone got tired of trying to make it work, so my friend Amanda, who was hosting us, suggested that someone sleep on the floor. She said she would get some extra pillows and blankets for that person. Honestly, I think that comment was directed at me because I am on the bigger side compared to my friends. I kind of brushed it off because even though no one explicitly said, "You're fat, sleep on the floor," it felt like they were implying that. As soon as Amanda said someone should sleep on the floor, they all started talking about how small they were and how they weren't taking up much space, so it shouldn't be them. I knew they were expecting me to say I'd sleep on the floor, but I never did. Since no one offered, eventually Amanda herself slept on the floor and acted like it wasn't a big deal. My friend Taylor said something like, "You shouldn't sleep on the floor in your own house. I think the person who takes up the most space should." After that, we just laid down, but there were still little comments like, "It's still not enough room, someone else should have gotten on the floor," and "I feel bad for Amanda." Everyone eventually fell asleep and the topic was over. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The whole night, everyone kept throwing indirect insults at me and making me feel like I was at fault for Amanda having to sleep on the floor at her own house. I understand that I am the bigger one, and it might have been more spacious without me on the bed, but they were making me feel really bad. I feel like they handled it the wrong way, and once Amanda got on the floor, they should have just let it go. Am I the one in the wrong for not volunteering to sleep on the floor? Story 15. Could I be the bad guy for asking my aunt's daughter and her child to leave the house I've been keeping afloat? I never thought it would come to this, but I'm at my wit's end. I'm a 38-year-old man living in my late grandmother's house with my younger brother. He works, but he doesn't contribute much, mostly just buys meat and helps with electricity. I've been covering most of the expenses: groceries, coal, firewood, cleaning supplies, and honestly, I'm barely holding on financially. I've had to borrow money just to keep everything going. The house was getting dirtier and messier than I could handle. Since I work full-time, I decided to invite my aunt's unemployed daughter, let's call her Elle, to stay here temporarily, thinking it might help. She moved in with her young child, around 4 years old. At first, she cooked and cleaned, which was a relief, but over time, it just became too much. She doesn't contribute financially at all, but she uses resources heavily. For example, at the start of the month, I bought 18 kilograms of washing powder, and now it's almost gone. The biggest problem was when she put laundry from her child into the washing machine we all share, without rinsing the clothes properly. That was the last straw for me. I told my aunt that this arrangement was no longer working. I suggested that her daughter only come occasionally to clean, not to stay permanently. My aunt told me I should speak directly to her daughter, which I didn't really want to do, but I finally sent her a calm, respectful WhatsApp message explaining that I was struggling and that I could only manage about 500 Rand per month if she came to clean. I didn't insult her or list everything she's done wrong. I just explained that this setup wasn't sustainable for me anymore. She hasn't responded yet, but I expect she'll be upset. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole for asking her to leave, especially since I was the one who initially invited her in the first place. Story 16. Did I overreact when he grabbed the umbrella and I ran away? Or was I justified in feeling hurt and embarrassed? It all started during a trip to a foreign country in December, when we had been married about a year. The weather was terrible, the rainy season hitting hard, and I hate being caught in the rain more than most people hate nails on a chalkboard. I usually just put up with it silently, but this trip required a little more planning because we couldn't avoid the rain easily. The obvious solution was an umbrella, but I knew from past experience that if Joe didn't bring his own, he would just grab mine and hold it over his head, leaving me almost completely exposed to the rain. So I was very clear about it. I would bring my own umbrella, but he had to have his own too. I didn't want to share because it never works properly, and I didn't want to get drenched while he stayed dry. He didn't bring his own umbrella, and he didn't want to buy one when we saw a market stall selling them. By the end of the trip, it started pouring suddenly while we were outside. I quickly pulled out my umbrella, and without warning, Joe immediately grabbed it, lifting it high above his head so it did nothing for me. I didn't think much, just ran over to an open-air restaurant about 30 feet away to get out of the rain. That's when he started yelling at me from across the distance, saying I always do this. I honestly didn't know what he meant by that because I rarely go anywhere and there's nowhere for me to run to except safety. I wasn't upset with him at that moment, just trying to get out of the rain. Everyone in the restaurant stopped talking and looked at us, which I found embarrassing and rude. I meant he was rude for disturbing them, not that they were rude. Later that night in the hotel, we got into a big fight. I told him I didn't like being yelled at in front of everyone, that these conversations never lead anywhere productive. He kept insisting I was mad at him about the umbrella, but I wasn't. I was just annoyed after the fact. I didn't think it was a big deal that I ran to get out of the rain. I didn't think I needed to ask him to move the umbrella or try to adjust it. I was just trying to protect myself from getting soaked. He kept pressing me about it, and finally I asked why he didn't get his own umbrella if he was going to be upset when I took cover after he basically took mine. That's when he said, and I quote, "This is why all my friends think I am pussy-whipped," which really cut me deep and made me start second-guessing everything. Now I'm wondering if I was the asshole for how I acted when he grabbed the umbrella. Maybe I shouldn't have run off without saying anything first or asked him to adjust it instead. He doesn't usually yell at me and isn't often mad at me, but he does get angry when I'm upset with him. On the other hand, he has this habit of telling me what I'm upset about, which isn't true, and then getting mad at me for what he claims I'm upset about. It feels like he wants me to be angry at him over things that aren't fair. I know I can be too sensitive sometimes, but I just felt humiliated and hurt by what he said and how he acted. Am I the asshole for how I responded? Thanks for making it to the end of today's video. I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider liking or subscribing, but I hope you have a nice day either way.